Hello, thanks for watching. This is Jessie, and this is my channel, The Caffeinated Bookworm. And today I'm going to be reviewing Without Remorse by Tom Clancy. I had made a couple of review videos of this before, but I don't have my laptop to stitch them together and edit them. So I'm going to do another review, and I'm going to try to make it as seamless and painless as possible. So John and I had watched the movie, and we had recommended it to his brother because his brother likes Tom Clancy. Um, and his brother was like, well, I've seen the preview, but it doesn't look anything like the book. And I was like, oh, you've read the book? And he was like, yes, would you like to read it? I was like, of course I'd like to read it. Um, so, oh my goodness. It's not like, okay, so it's almost as if the directors or producers or Hollywood or whatever, they're like, okay, so we are going to make a bastardized version of this book, which is only very loosely based off of it. And some of the characters, we're going to combine some characters. We're going to change the whole dynamic of what makes Kelly Kelly in this story. We're going to use the same title, and we're going to attach Tom Clancy's name on it because we want that demographic. And then we're going to get the hottest young actor we could find, and we're going to get the younger demographic by luring them in with his face. And they have a movie, and it made lots of money, and I don't know. I guess, is Tom Clancy still alive? Is he okay with this? Anyway, so we start off in the prologue, and in the prologue, you meet some of the main characters. You meet Kelly. He is attaching explosives to an offshore oil rig, which has been damaged in a hurricane. You meet his wife, Patricia, or Tish, as she's on her way to pick him up. Now, as she's on her way to pick him up, now if you've seen the movie, but you haven't read the book, and you plan on reading the book, maybe don't watch the video, because there's a lot of spoilers and all the things that are wrong with the movie. So Tish is driving to go pick up Kelly after he finishes with the oil rig, and she is hit by a truck. Now, the truck driver, his brakes go out, and it describes how he sees her, like her in profile, because she's driving across her green light. She never turns. She doesn't even flinch. She never sees it coming. I mean, and it's a dramatic enough scene as it is, right? I don't feel like it needed to be changed, and the fact that it was changed, I feel, changed the entire dynamic of the story in the movie, because it turned into, Hollywood turned it into whoever Kelly was extracting. I'm assuming it was Colonel Zacharias, because that's who it was in the book. I'm assuming it was Zacharias that he was extracting, but the people who he took him from were pissed off, and the Russians came stateside, shot Kelly's wife, who in the movie was Pam, and then shot beside her, thinking that they were killing Kelly as well. And then that's the entire story for Kelly in the movie, is Kelly trying to get revenge on the people who killed his wife. So obviously his wife getting hit by a truck driver who's not really to blame. His brakes go out. It's not the same as the movie. And then, and also in the prologue, you meet Pam, who is not his wife. And in the movie, they made his wife's name Pam, which is really strange if you've read the book. So you meet Pam. In the prologue, when you meet Pam, she's watching her friend die, and you understand that they are being held against their will. Her friend is dying a violent and terrible and painful death. It's a bad situation. And you also meet Colonel Zacharias. Now, Colonel Zacharias is up in a jet, a Thunder Chief, and he's got his bear with him, Jack Tate. And you can glean the pride that they have in what they're doing, and the near cockiness that Zacharias has with his skills and ability as a pilot. And then they're shot down. Tate dies when they're shot down. Zacharias, he shoots himself out of the pilot seat, and then when he lands, he's captured immediately, and they're not nice about it either. And so that's the prologue. Then we get into chapter 1, and in chapter 1, it immediately starts with Kelly driving down the highway, and he sees Pam. Now, I had mentioned in an earlier video that I thought it was really strange how Pam reacted to Kelly, and as I went further on in the book, there's a reason for that. So Kelly doesn't realize like the entirety of the situation. He sees Pam. I'm not sure what was going through his head. He's not even sure what was going through his head, if I remember correctly. But he stops and he picks her up. She's not thumbing it. She doesn't have her thumb out. She's got her leg out. When she comes up to the car, she doesn't even let him ask if she needs a ride. She doesn't ask for a ride. She's just basically like, hey, where are you heading? So Kelly picks her up, and he takes her to his boat, and they are on their way to Battery Island, which is essentially U.S. owned. It used to be used for munitions testing, basically. But the U.S. government, or somebody that Kelly is associated with, has essentially let Kelly use it as his own private island. So he picks up the stranger who gets in the car with him. Now remember, Pam in the prologue is watching her friend die. And at this point, she has escaped from whatever that madness was. But she gets into the car with a strange man, gets on his boat, and is on her way to a deserted island with him. They get caught in a storm. I mentioned this before. It was this pretty hot scene. It should have been a hot scene because it was sex in a storm on a boat in the tossing waves. It should have been something other than what it was. For me, it was really weird. Again, because Pam just escaped something that doesn't scream to me, let me go get with the first guy that I meet. As we go through the story, we find out that Pam was more than held against her will. She was, oh my God, she had a devastating, heartbreaking childhood. She ran away from home when she was 16. Her parents never went looking for her. She ended up in Houston and was immediately picked up by a pimp and was put to prostitution. She ran away from him. Just, it was really sad. From city to city, she's picked up immediately because something about her was screaming to the pimps that they could use her. But something in Pam was still on fire, and she ran away from every single one of them. And so I don't really want to get into the psychology of that too much, because I'm sure like there's things that are going on there that would have made her, I can see how she can think, okay, this guy looks like a nice guy, and now that I've spent some time with him, he seems like a nice guy, and he's taking care of me even after, after the storm scene, they meet Sam and Sarah, and they're spending some time with Sam and Sarah because Sam doesn't really know how to take care of a boat, and they're waiting for a part to come in. So they go with Kelly to the island, and they discover that Pam is also addicted to barbiturates, which isn't entirely her fault. From what I understand, she had been on drugs before the barbiturates, but the barbiturates in particular were something that were forced on her by the people who were holding her hostage. And so he stands by her. And so at this point, like just having, this unwavering male presence who is not forcing himself on her or holding her hostage, and now he seems to want to save her. I can understand where Pam's coming from, and they get into this, well, we're in love with each other. Like, and I can see, the pain from both their past, because Kelly's lost his wife and Pam has a really, really bad past. I can see how that would have had them come together. And so after the ordeal with Sam and Sarah, who are doctors, they promise to check in on Kelly and Pam to make sure Pam's doing okay. Well, Kelly gets it into his head that he's going to figure this out himself. I don't know, fix the situation, rectify it with this whole thing with Pam and being held against her will. I don't know what was going to his head. So he thinks it's going to be a good idea to take Pam to the place and see what he can scope out. And I think he sees a drug deal go down, and then there's a car that passes him, and it's at that moment he realizes that he messes up, because the guy in the car recognizes Pam, and she's like, "Oh my God, that's the guy!" And so they ensue, like a car chase ensues, and Kelly's leading them, like he's zigzagging, and he leads them through like some water, and he thinks that he's lost them, because like Colonel Zacharias, Kelly's amazingly prideful and sure and in his driving ability, and losing these guys. He thinks he loses them after the water, and he stops and he taunts them. He gets out of the car and he taunts them, and they take off and they think everything's okay. And Pam's about to reach back, and I think she's grabbing like a drink or something, and he hears her gasp, and he already knows that he messed up. Long, gory, devastating story short. They take Pam. They kill her in a really horrible, devastating, brutal way. They shoot Kelly, who ends up in the hospital. And then after that, Kelly gets involved with one of the girls who was held with Pam. And so they're working on getting the pimps, and he ends up torturing one of the pimps to get some information. I think her name was Dora, and then her father comes into the story as well. And so he's kind of helping Dora and her father, but then the government comes to Kelly and says, "Hey, we need you. You're the only one who can go extract Colonel Zacharias. We need you to do it." So, in the middle of this drama over here with trying to, I guess, avenge Pam's death, he is sent overseas to extract Zacharias. Now, there's a lot of side characters in here. There's a Coast Guard guy who we understand is, I think his name is Oresa Manuel. We understand that they're not good people, and then he gets Lieutenant Allen involved, and we see there is a problem that I saw with Kelly's intelligence as Alan started figuring things out rather quickly. And, in my head, I'm thinking, if Kelly is the only person who can go and extract Zacharias, and he is as smart and intelligent as this book is trying to make him out to be, then there's certain situations where I'm like, if he's this smart, then why is he this dumb? But that's beside the point, I guess. So he's sent to Vietnam to rescue Zacharias, but he tries to use, I think it was Grishnikov. He captures one of the Russians or the lieutenants, and he's trying to use it as leverage to trade for Zacharias. And he goes in and he saves him, and then he's the hero by the end of the story, of course. And so it was a good book. It was a good story. There are some situations in the book where Tom Clancy, I feel like he's letting his personality show through, and it's not a good thing. Like, there's a situation where Kelly is looking at Sam's wife, Sarah, and he's like, she's frumpy, and she's obviously the kind of woman who pisses off men when she's driving. And I'm like, what kind of a woman pisses off men? Like, there's a specific kind of woman who pisses off men when they're driving. I mean, and there's certain things like throughout the book that are sprinkled in there, and I'm just like, oh, okay, I know what kind of a person Tom Clancy is. And then I don't know, like, I feel like that puts me in a position where I'm judging an author because of what he's writing, and that can put me in a place where people are going to be like, well, what about this author who writes all of this stuff and this author who writes all of this stuff? It was just the way that it was put in there so offhandedly that made me feel like this is a mirror of Tom Clancy's personality. In addition to that, there's a lot in here about the ammunitions, about the boats, and uh, when my brother-in-law gave me the book, he did mention, that Tom Clancy wants to make you feel like you understand the minutia of these things, like the ammunitions, the boats, how they operate, what makes them tick, how to break them down and put them back together. And when I told my friend Carol, my bestie Carol, hi Carol, that I was going to be reading a Tom Clancy book, she's like, his books are so dry. I'm surprised that that the shelves that they're on don't spontaneously combust. I thought that was really funny. And there's a lot of stuff in here. And I feel like with Tom Clancy, his editors were like, well, it's Tom Clancy. Just go ahead and publish whatever he gives you. Don't worry about editing out. Because honestly, this book is as big as a Malazan book, almost. It's 750 pages long. But the story itself, I feel like it could have been done in probably 400 pages. But like I said, it feels like Tom Clancy, any book he writes, he goes and he turns it in, and they're just like, don't tell him anything. Don't tell him anything needs to be changed. It's Tom Clancy. Just print it as he gives it to you. I don't know if that's actually what happened or whether this originally started out as like a 2,000-page tome. But that's what it feels like. Now, my next Tom Clancy book, because I am a masochist, apparently. My next Tom Clancy book is going to be The Hunt for the Red October, because that was my favorite movie as a child. Like, it was one of my favorite movies. Like, I had The Last Unicorn, The Secret Garden with Jacoby. I think it was Jacoby. And then The Hunt for the Red October. I know it's really weird, but it was one of my favorite movies as I was growing up. So that's the next book I'm going to read by Tom Clancy, but it's not going to be anytime soon because I need to finish Memories of Ice, Hyperion, and The Maidens. So I don't know. What do you think? Do you read Tom Clancy? Do you like his writing? Do you overlook the obvious personality quirks that are included in his stories? Do you like his movies? Have you read this book and watched the movie? And how do you feel about that? I don't know. Thanks so much for watching. Like and subscribe below. You have a wonderful day.